Would you be brave enough to spend your entire summer learning a language at a school that is so strict you might even cry in the first week? Well, this is Middlebury. Let's call it a summer camp. You leave with a new language. Now, they are world famous for getting awesome results, crazy fast, and for being downright addictive. So what is the catch?
When we're in the cafeteria, we also can learn how to speak like 口语怎么说呢?
Yep, you might forget how to speak English.
你好，我叫 Jason. I am South African. I'm just about to start the program here at Middlebury, the 8-week Chinese summer program. I'm really excited. I can't speak any Chinese further than what I just told you. And I'm hoping to use Mandarin within engineering as a long-term goal.
The school that Jason is talking about is in Addison County, Vermont in the US. Middlebury language schools are part of Middlebury College and offer intensive language summer programs in 13 different languages. But this isn't just any language school. They are famous all over the world, actually, for their innovative training methods, which involve a surefire way to get dramatic results.
把大部分的精神集中在书面语的说法，比较正式的词，但是因为我们需要每顿饭 跟老师、跟朋友、跟其他的学生吃在一起，那是这个原因，我们可以学到很多的口语的说法。
At Middlebury, they say, just don't forget your English. In fact, they claim that if you take the summer to learn Spanish, you will be at the intermediate level by autumn. That's just 7 weeks. Now, already on this channel, we've looked at intensive language programs at Defense Language Institute, the Foreign Service Institute, the French Foreign Legion. So how does Middlebury compare? Well, we're going to find out. Now, just to be clear, this video is not sponsored by Middlebury in any way at all. They haven't seen this content. They haven't had any editorial input whatsoever. Everything you're about to see comes from our own research with actual graduates of the program, including someone who went there 4 times. Students, teachers, artists, entrepreneurs, politicians, all kinds of people of all ages and from all language levels gather at the school every summer to put themselves through a crazy few weeks.
There's an idea of like, okay, I'm going to be in this weird state for a day. Like, that's one thing, but like weeks, you go crazy, and you just happen to go crazy in German.
It's a total immersion program, which means that students come here and they are, I told them, 24/7 with the language of instruction. This is a program that is very, very effective for people who really want to learn fast. The speed, the intensity of the program is unparalleled to anything else you can imagine about learning a language. I mean, I have a lot of experience with other programs, and this is by far the best.
And Middlebury has been offering these language immersion courses for, check this out, more than 100 years. The idea is that total language immersion combined with rigorous classroom learning and lots of activities, no English at all, and absolutely everything done in the target language will help you achieve dramatic breakthroughs, no matter what language you learn or what level you are at. And make no mistake, English is forbidden. So why on earth would anyone want to do this?
I want to read Harry Potter in Russian.
I want to achieve full fluency in Spanish.
I want to speak to my family in French.
So they believe that if you want to master a second language, you need to speak it freely when you are learning. But how do they make sure that nobody speaks English? You're going to love this, or maybe hate it. Let's see. But before I reveal their secret weapon, let's first see how to get in. Each summer, they enroll about 1,500 students aged between 18 and 80, and 15% of these students are complete beginners in the language. But make no mistake, this is not for everybody.
This is not, I'm going to go travel in some country and I want to learn how to order coffee. This is an experience that you will never forget, that is a kind of shared trauma across a whole group at the same time as like a shared accomplishment across a whole group.
So it's not a program that I would suggest for somebody who is not committed.
The one thing they have in common, they want to be war buddies. Yeah, because this is basically a linguistic boot camp. It is for brave language lovers who really want to learn a language really fast in an immersive, exciting environment, and they are not afraid of a certain something.
You know, are you going to sign yourself up for effectively like a 7-week ego death experience in a group where you are like, who you are is just ripped apart? You're not going to do that to order coffee. If that sounds appealing, then it is for you. If that sounds like, hell no, I don't want to do that, then it's not for you. Like, it's a kind of quick, easy decision in terms of, is Middlebury a good idea?
Intrigued yet? Well, if a 7-week ego death sounds good to you, well, keep watching. To apply, you can be anywhere from beginner to advanced because there's quite a big range of options and opportunities.
This summer, for example, we have priests, we have doctors, we have lawyers, people doing social work, we have government people. It's a very diverse type of people, not only typical undergraduate students from a college. Of course, we do have those too. We have had nuns, not this summer, but have 2 priests this summer. And so I tell you, it's sometimes it's the challenge because you have from all sectors of society, and sometimes in class, they just crash.
There are programs for college students, non-college students, and there are 2 types. They have immersion programs and graduate programs. What you go for is going to depend on your goal. And I have to say, some of the choices are pretty awesome. But there's one important thing you have to know before any of this, which is that you have to be willing to take a pledge. And by pledge, I mean a high-stakes contract that you sign and absolutely cannot get out of.
In Middlebury, everyone has already signed up, literally, to be the weirdo.
I'm going to show you the exact pledge in a minute, but let's quickly check out that application.
Middlebury is a standard college application process. There is a placement test that you take only if you are not in level 1. Level 1 is for I don't know anything.
So you take your placement test, and by March, they'll tell you what level you are. It's a pretty hard test, but at least you'll get the right placement. And when you show up in June, you also have to take an oral placement test and a written placement test to double confirm your level.
And you will be in front of a panel of people talking in your target language, and you will be writing out essays and all this stuff. It's a big old placement test.
And all students, except for complete beginners, have to do it.
You have the option of being honest with that thing, or you have the option of being dishonest with that thing. You sort of state your level. In French's case, I wanted to be level 1.5. I didn't know any French, but I was just like, screw it. I'm going to use Google Translate and pretend I do. That's what pushed me into building Fluent Forever in the first place, was being screwed, meaning just like attempting to prove that you are going to have this level, and I didn't have that level. So I had to teach myself French.
So don't do what he did. Also good to know, if you start on one level and you're not happy with it, then they are happy to bump you up or down. Once you've been accepted, it's time to sign on the dotted line, of course, but before making promises you can't take back, shall we see what you'll be getting yourself into?
You sign your language pledge. There's like a big old ceremony where you're like, okay, there's the time where you're going to give up on English and only use your target language. Everyone signs this thing, and then suddenly like things get really weird and scary.
In signing this language pledge, I agree to use as my only language of communication while attending the Middlebury language schools. I understand that failure to comply with this pledge may result in my expulsion. This is the pledge you will have to sign, and it means you promise not to speak English at all for the next 7 or 8 weeks. That's right, from day one, when you don't yet know a single word of the language that you've come to learn.
You don't know where you are. You don't know how to talk anymore if you're level 1. Everything gets kind of awkward, and people just kind of like giggle a little bit. It's just like, oh, okay, like I can't even say okay. You're just kind of stuck for a bit, and everyone is stuck in the same boat, and you're all in this weird alien world where you're not allowed to use your mouth. Like, it's just this very strange circumstance. And then you just kind of float. It's a very disorienting experience. It's a very strange thing. Like, if you're in Italy and you're like, I joined an immersion program, nothing has really changed. You just signed up for some classes. You can go to your local cafe and they'll still speak to you in English. And you can be like, you could stumble through English and be like, hey, like, I don't really speak Italian very well. Can you give me the thing? And they'll be like, oh, I don't speak English very well, but yeah, I'll give you the thing. That's a natural human interaction. But the idea of like going up to colleagues that you just met yesterday and being like, and they're like, and like, that's like, you're in weird improv camp, except you're stuck there.
And did you read that last line? Because they are not joking.
If you break that, they are reported. I write to them, come to my office, and I tell them, this is a warning, a very serious warning. Next time, you're going to be expelled from the program. In the pledge they sign, it specifically states that you will be expelled from the program and no refund to your money.
Well, it ain't cheap, so there is no messing about. When you take the pledge, you're committing for the whole summer. Think you could do that?
The pledge is one of the foundations of the Middlebury Language School's experience. Once you take the pledge with your school, you should make every effort to remain in language. I want you to think of the pledge not as a rule you live in fear of violating, but rather as your best ally in your studies.
Quand j'ai signé l'engagement de l'or, je me disais tout pour toi parce que je ne parlais pas le français, mais après, j'ai compris toute la conversation.
But like all other mad things you've tried, it just takes one good reason. Speaking of pledges, if you click these 3 buttons right here, I promise to never stop bringing you inspiring videos about languages. So go on, like, subscribe, and notifications. That's the pledge.
So Middlebury has this kind of philosophy that you have to live the language. You have to integrate the language into as many aspects as possible. So that is why they have the language houses. And the language houses are just dormitories that are reserved for people that want to speak a particular language. I think that they have 8 different language houses, and by living in the house, you commit yourself to only speaking in the target language when you are in the dorm. So people don't really speak English unless they are inviting a person that doesn't speak the target language. But if you're speaking to one of your suite mates, it is really impolite. At least I think it is perceived as impolite to speak in English, so people don't do that.
So what's even nicer about the language house is that you'll have a live-in native speaker, just to keep an eye on you all, of course. There are 2 main campuses. The Arabic, Italian and Portuguese schools are located on a campus called Bennington, and all the others are on the Middlebury campus, except for the new English language school, which is actually in Monterey, California. Now, once you're in, you complete a questionnaire about study habits and lifestyle preferences so that they can match you with a roommate, hallmates, or suite mates. And this is where your immersion begins, because everything you do from now on will be with other students learning the same language as you.
Pepino es una fruta. Pimienta. No tiene pimienta.
That's right, everything is organized by language, dormitories, eating halls.
Students wear this pin. This identifies the student as Spanish language student. So if you go to breakfast, I tell the students, you are only able to sit with people who have this pin. If they have RU, which is Russian, or FR, which is French, you're not allowed to sit with them. During breakfast and during brunch on the weekends, that's the only time we share meals with other schools. But then we have different hours for dining, lunch and dinner. So, for example, my school has an allotted time for lunch and dinner are only Spanish in the dining hall, only Spanish. So you actually don't need this at lunch or dinner because it's all in Spanish. If you're walking on campus, you see that pin and the other person doesn't have a pin, you're not even allowed to say hello. The language pledge is not only speaking, is listening.
So you can't even break the pledge in a different language to English. That is kind of clever and also a little bit hilarious. Breakfast is at the same time across all 10 language schools, and there are 5 cafeterias, so you'll have 2 languages sharing each cafeteria. This is an example of how the eating time is organized. So you'll be eating, sleeping, and learning in that language only. Staff, students, faculty, everybody. Kind of stressful? Yeah, sounds like it. Which can color your dreams in a rather amusing way.
This dream of that's blue. That's also blue. This is blue. That was my dream. Just the worst dream. But it was in German. So you're just I have to, something, just blue. It's blue, 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 blue. That's what's happening right now.
The 13 languages currently taught are Abenaki, Arabic, Chinese, English, French, German, Hebrew, Italian, Japanese, Korean, Portuguese, Russian, and Spanish. Haven't heard of Abenaki? Well, don't worry, nor had I. It's an endangered indigenous language from Quebec and New England. Sounds like a pretty interesting course. We're going to find out a little more about these courses in a minute, and you'll also see how the daily schedule works. Most languages have 7 or 8 week programs. Take Arabic as an example. You can do an 8-week Arabic immersion program if your main goal is just to improve your Arabic proficiency as fast as possible. But you can also choose from bonus courses or even something a little bit different. Abenaki is just a 2-week immersion program. Hebrew has a 4-week classical Hebrew option as well as an online option. Russian has a refresher course as well as an advanced online course. And then there are some rather unexpected courses.
It's a language program for professional and aspiring professional singers.
When you're singing a language that you really don't understand and you only understand the translation, or when you're singing a language that you understand, you form the words differently. They live in you in a different way. And for us to be able to have that gift of living the language, it's then in our craft.
It's basically the same program, except that you'd also have voice lessons. You'd also put on some kind of production at the end. It was really suggested to me by some friends saying hey, you want to just get rid of 2 of your semesters of German requirements quick, you can get done with it in 1 summer. And I'm like, yes, I want that. I was doing 2 majors at a time. The idea of anything that could save me any time was the right call.
Yes, German for Singers is an actual language course you can do at Middlebury.
3/4 of our classes were the same. We really did overlap. I think we even were in the same classrooms as the other students at times. Our grammar class really was taught by the German for Singers teacher. And so she was just super into classical music and stuff like that, and was just here, let's gear this a little bit more content-wise towards what you are going to encounter. Also, I think she just really liked dealing with musicians, and so there was that. She was fabulous, is fabulous. Then in the afternoons, some of our classes tended to be more like, okay, this is a performance class. Like, let's have a class on German diction. Let's have a class on, how are you pronouncing this on the stage, not just pronouncing it generally. Yeah, a lot more of a pronunciation focus. We would have specific singing lessons, private one-on-one singing lessons once or twice a week, private one-on-one coaching lessons once or twice a week, which is sort of musicality, stuff like that. We would put on a performance at the end of the summer for the school, and we would have rehearsals with our collaborators. And so like those relationships were also like, okay, how do we learn how to sing and play these things together, like without English as a common thing. So being able to have a working relationship with your pianist in the target language was also like part of the interactions there. And I think all the pianists were generally intermediate or higher. And so they tended to have like a higher level than the singers. Like they were also learning, they were also in the program, but there was some sense of, oh God, I don't know what I'm doing. Do you know? And like they do know.
And if you think this is a cool idea, well, there's nothing new about music and dancing at Middlebury. Those German students have been having fun since the 1940s. In fact, the German school was the forerunner of all the Middlebury language schools in 1915. It was founded by a German-American immigrant called Liliane Strober. When the war in Europe brought an end to happy days of traveling, she asked herself a fateful question. How could we simulate a summer trip to Europe right here in America? Everything from the language pledge down to the beautiful green rural setting was carefully chosen all those years ago by Liliane. Graduate degrees are a little different. They are not part of the summer program. They are for students who have already studied their language for 4 years or longer, so they have graduate level proficiency. If that's you, you can go for a Master of Arts, a Master of Arts in Applied Languages, or even a Doctor of Modern Languages, which sounds very cool. Or just enjoy another summer learning another language. Of course, some people, we won't mention names, don't know when to stop.
Once I had been, like, it was such an incredible experience that I was like, oh, I have to do this more. So I went back the following summer for like an additional immersion for that, when I don't think I even needed it for credits anymore. It was like, I think I'd already kind of hit the levels that I needed to hit, but I fell in love with their program. I went back to Middlebury for French, and then I went back to Middlebury for Russian. And those were my 4 times at Middlebury. I got addicted to them. I guess 2012 was my last time there. So it's been 10 years, and still probably on like every 1 or 2 months, I dream about being in Middlebury.
Well, if you love languages that much, you probably want some options, because not everyone can spend their entire summer at a language camp in America, can they? And if you're the type who prefers to learn from home in your own time, then you might like to try out another method where you can learn a language through stories, because when you learn through stories, it's just like immersion. Same thing. The principle is the same, but you can do it from your living room, which may be an advantage if you can't leave home for the whole summer. Anyway, the method is called story learning. It's the same method that I use in my books of short stories, which you might have seen at bookstores around the place. And to show you how it works, I've put together something for you. It's a free story learning kit. Now, this kit is a collection of video masterclasses, tutorials, audio guides, printable worksheets. It's a complete guide to learning languages through stories. So check it out. There is a link in the description. It is completely free and will help you decide if that method is perfect for you.
We have a very good faculty. I hire faculty from all over the Spanish-speaking world, not only from Spain or Mexico. They're from different countries. We always work on the idea to help all types of students and try to make the environment, the class, very accommodating. I have people from Mexico, Spain, Argentina, Peru, Venezuela, Colombia, Puerto Rico, Cuba. They listen to different types of Spanish, and I'm proud of that too. It's very diverse. The faculty are hired nationally and internationally. People come from different countries, or Latinx people who are living in the US, just like me. They come here and work.
The diversity sounds really, really amazing. There are over 300 staff members who teach each summer and personally get to know the students in small classes over meals and around campus. So someone is always there to challenge and motivate you.
My name is Lorenzo Borgotardo, and I'm originally from Turin in the north of Italy. And this is my 5th summer teaching at Middlebury College. When students make mistakes, I try to correct them, but never censor them, just to give them the chance to make mistakes, because learning a language is all about making mistakes and learning from those mistakes. I'm really constantly surprised by the amount of progress they make in such a short time.
No translations whatsoever in class. Now, I think that is a first. Well, the programs are designed to improve your language skills as fast as possible. Speaking and listening, reading and writing, phonetics, grammar, the whole shebang. And there's also something else that makes this school kind of unique.
And we have what we call co-curricular activities, which are activities that happen in the afternoons and in the evenings, at least in my school. And those activities are called co-curricular because they're integral part of the program. You practice the language from the time you wake up. You start classes at 8 o'clock and you don't stop practicing the language until 10:30 p.m. So you have an opportunity to practice the language to not only in class, but you go the co-curricular activities such as sports, pronunciation, conversation. We have so many.
More on the co-curricular activities coming up later, but the students who really take full advantage of this are the ones who make dramatic progress and get confidence, especially in their speaking. Now, while each school has its own daily schedule, here is a general idea of how your typical day might flow. Wake up is early if you want breakfast, and then after breakfast you spend anywhere from 4 to 5 hours in classroom settings, which are great instruction, I believe, sometimes with video lessons too.
You get to class, classes are entirely in the target language with very, very few exceptions at the very base level. Sometimes they'll be throwing in a little bits of English in some languages, not all. But all in all, the classes are spent in the target language. You are learning a variety of things. It really depends on your level. Sometimes there's let's have a literature class, let's have a movie class, let's have a politics class, let's have a basic grammar class, all these kinds of things. Good instruction, really, really great instruction.
So students go 8 to 10, they go to class we called resources for communication. And so it's grammar in context, grammar in the context to talk. So our classes are geared towards practicing the language. Obviously, they have to learn grammar. So basically, the first 2 hours, you're learning basics, how to conjugate a verb, just the very basics, how to do past sentences and so on. Each school has a different kind of schedule. 10 to 11, they rest because they can do tutoring, they can do homework during that hour. 11 to 12 and 12 to 1, we have 2 additional classes. One of them is called Hispanic Societies. So it's more of a culture class to put the context of learning different cultures from the Hispanic speaking world. And then we have oral and written production. And so they practice writing, they practice speaking. So that makes it 4 hours of instruction every day.
I must say, I like this even balance of input and output. It's suitable for the program, I think. You're also getting examined along the way. It's the same approach that a regular university would take, except for the no English rule, perhaps.
I mean, students who come to level 1, they're speaking at the end.
Lunch is at noon and then back to class. After class, there are some afternoon activities where you can put your newly learned language skills to work. These are pretty fantastic and there are tons of them.
The rest of the afternoon tends to be full of, there's just piles and piles of extracurriculars. There's the German choir, join the German Frisbee team, join the German sewing team. Let's go do chess club, just piles and piles of stuff. And they really do push you to do it.
They definitely push you to do these things, but you don't have to. The activities are voluntary. You'd be crazy if you don't since you're there, I would have thought. It's about as close as you're going to get to immersion without flying overseas. We'll take a better look at the activities in a moment, but dinner is somewhere between 6 and 8:30, and then you're done, right? No, not a chance. They've got to make sure you're still learning.
And then in the evenings, we have films. We have dinner from 7 to 8:30. 8:30, we have films, we have concerts. Always we have something going on.
And then bedtime?
You tend to have about 4 hours of homework a night. So it's substantial. And so you're banging out exercises, essays, everything.
Did I hear that right? He said 4 hours of homework?
They have to do homework as a normal class. They have to read, they have to write, they have tests.
Sound fun? Come on, admit it. How many of you have chickened out by now? Be honest. I think I might have done. And then finally, it's lights out. Just as an example, this is a taste of what Korean learners will get. And that's not all. There are picnics, dinners, films, performances, sports events, karaoke, of course, and even a cultural exchange club where you can chat online with real native Koreans in Korea. How about the Spanish class? What are some things that they do?
We have flamenco dancing, soccer, lectura en voz alta, which is live reading aloud. For first levels. I mean, that's the ones that come to my mind right now.
Whatever language you're learning, there is a whole range of activities and clubs, meaning plenty of chance to practice your language skills in real-world situations.
If you're learning vocabulary around cooking, right? Like the cooking club. That's another thing that is just something that sticks with you. It's a really beautiful place.
I put together a random selection here to give you an idea. But by the way, have you decided yet whether the language pledge is a good thing or a bad thing? Let me know in the comments. If you think your weekend is your getaway escape to English land time, then think again, because on weekends you will get 4 to 8 hours of homework. But weekends are also a time to take part in performances, dances, and other special programs. But you are not exactly a prisoner of the school.
We party together, we go to all things together.
If you go out into the town, all the restaurants know about Middlebury. That's what brings them all their business during the summer. So they have like German menus and French menus, and it's like super cute.
There's also something called the Middlebury Centre for Careers and Internships. They offer career information sessions that students can go to. So if you like to network and check out some career opportunity resources, then that's the place to go. But what about if you have certain family obligations? Is there any way you can do that stuff at the weekend? Or does your family also have to speak Russian and Arabic to you?
We allow for religious services. People are very religious and they need to go to mass or whatever they want to do religiously is fine. We allow it. Or, for example, commercial interactions in the town. Of course, they can use English to do interactions. Or health, I tell them, please, health is the most important thing. So if you have mental health or any health issues, you're allowed to talk to your doctors in English, of course. But then with family and very, very close relatives or close friends or spouses, I tell them, look, reserve yourself 1 hour on the weekends or 2 if you want. And do your calls. We're not forcing you to separate, break up relationships. So imagine what was Middlebury in 1917 when this program started. The German professor who started with the language schools in 1915 chose Middlebury because of the distance. So nobody was around. So you can really. The pledge was the pledge. I mean, there was nothing, maybe cows.
What would a school be without talent shows, of course? Now, at Middlebury, you can grab your moment in the spotlight because they have a talent show near the end. Cool. People perform whatever they want, comedy, singing, dancing.
We have a choir with a concert at the end. We have theater. They can go to play. We do a play. I bring a theater director from Mexico, a professional theater director. They rehearse every day. This summer, for example, we're doing a performance on this well-known writer from the colonial times in Mexico, Sor Juana Inés de la Cruz. So we're doing a play based on her life. They already started rehearsing, and in 1 month, we're going to see the play. And we also have the choir, and we also have a film. We produce a video every summer it's a short, maybe 20, 30 minutes. And students who want to participate, they say, okay, bring me stories. If you know how to film, come. And so you have a group of people, and it's always fun.
If you're interested in seeing a video they produce, then click this link here. And guys, you don't have to have any experience to take part in those shows.
I told them if I was in the choir, anybody can be in the choir.
I really love that they put so much fun into learning languages. I mean, that's going to make a big difference when you're studying so hard. You are 100% living the language and culture from morning to night in an engaging environment with a lot of reinforcement. This might just be the fastest language learning method we've found so far.
Yes. Yes. The answer to your question is yes. I think that is the fastest thing you can do. The idea of saying, I'm going to spend 100% of my time on this one thing, and I'm going to do it in this particular way where there's not going to be a single word of English. Yes, if the thing you want is spoken fluency, that is the fastest route there. If what you want is long-term retention, things like that, then there's discussions to be had. But if the thing you want is just give me minimum number of weeks so that I am saying things and I'm thinking in this language, yes.
Which reminds me, can we get Jason back here to see how he's doing after 8 weeks of learning Mandarin Chinese?
我是许江湘，我是南非人，我正在上明德大学夏天中文的学校学习中文。我觉得明德的老师非常好，非常专业，而且明德也很漂亮。可是我真的觉得明德的好处就是老师们都花很多时间帮学生练习说中文。
Wow, okay, now I don't know about you, but I think that language pledge isn't a downside, but actually probably an upside. Are there any downsides?
It's a hard, stressful experience. It is lonely. Like I would say the first few weeks are particularly hard. You usually will have a breakdown at some point in there. everyone has their crying day. Like it's just, it's a hard experience. And so the grind of that is hard and isolating. So yeah, it's lonely. It's crazy making. It is a really masochistic experience going to Middlebury. There's no other place where you can really do that. And have that far of an altered state in terms of language.
Now I know you want to see the dark side too, so full disclosure, and remember this is not sponsored by Middlebury, so I'm free to discuss this stuff. Not everybody loves their experience at Middlebury. Some feel that because the language you hear around you is mostly other English speakers making their own mistakes, then you end up kind of creating a bit of a pidgin language with your peers. And this is a downside for sure. It's not the same environment as it would be if you went and did a homestay abroad, for example. Maybe an unfair comparison, but it's just to state the obvious, it's not the same. Because in that scenario, you would be surrounded by native speakers and nothing but that. That's not what you get at Middlebury. But having said that, I think a lot of the benefit of an intensive program like this is kind of like the kickstart effect, right? It gets you started, and it doesn't matter if you're not perfect by the end of the length of the program there, because, well, the right way to look at any language project is a journey of many years or a lifetime. So whatever happens in the first couple of months doesn't necessarily matter all that much. It's getting you up to a basic level that matters. Although I'm sure that a lot of purists would disagree with that because, are you learning and fossilizing too many mistakes? I don't know. I haven't been. Other people who have attended Middlebury say that certain languages tend to be better than others when it comes to teachers. Not all teachers spend equal time with students out of class. And I guess you can understand why that is. But it does kind of contribute to that feeling of, well, how much time you're actually interacting with native speakers of the language. My advice, if you're curious about Middlebury, is do your research on the specific language course you're interested in and take into account your skill level as well, so you know exactly what you're going to get. I think with programs like this, it's always a good tip to seek out students who have taken the course previously. Reach out to them, have a chat. It might be really eye-opening. Any tips, though, for people watching this video who might be interested in spending a summer at Middlebury? What would you do to prepare?
We have had students who, at the beginning, are very afraid or see, oh my God, this is going to be impossible. I remember doing the orientation one year. There was this Chinese guy who came directly from China. He had never been in the US. And I gave the orientation. That's the only time I speak English to the level 1 students. In the orientation, I speak English. So I want them to understand everything that is going to happen. So after the orientation, this student came to my office and said, I need to speak to you in English because I need to understand. I said, sure, ask me. And he said, I don't know any Spanish, no one word. And I don't know how I'm going to handle this. I said, yes, you can handle it. I give him a piece of paper that we have, which is the first paper that says, hola, soy Jacobo, ¿cómo te llamas tú? Etc. Few sentences. I said, you start with this and you will see. You will see. Just give yourself a chance.
My favorite part of Middlebury is discovering who you are by the end of the 7 weeks. You kill off yourself in the first few weeks. There is no one there. And suddenly a person emerges by week 7 that you haven't met before. That experience is just fascinating. There's a moment on the last day or so when the language pledge just falls apart, where suddenly people start speaking in English and they are a completely different person. And you're a completely different person, and everyone suddenly just chaos. And like that shift of realizing how much you've changed over the 7 weeks versus this kind of default person you were before you showed up, and how that applies to every person that you formed a close relationship with. It's just fascinating. That's for me, like that's actually why I learn languages at this point. It's that experience is just mind-blowing.
And of course, one major advantage of Middlebury is that you can actually go. You can actually apply and get into it, because that is not always the case with these. In fact, in this video, I show you how American military linguists do their language training, because it's very, very different. And as a mere civilian, you've got absolutely no hope of even getting in.